Making your way through work Monday takes everything you got. Then Monday night rolls around and you realize there's a shot. You're only 10 points away. All those times when your team had no fight, they're just so gosh darn frail. Then your star quarterback let another deep ball sail, and your third round pick bet on his team. Then go check out our streets where everybody knows your pain, and they listen to complaints. You wanna be where you can see our bodies bring you no shame. You wanna go where everybody knows your pain.
Back to another episode of Dad Bod Fantasy Squad. I am here with Norton. What's up, dude? Muted. I probably muted you. Hold on, let me try to fix it here. It's on the system. There you go. You're good now.
All right. Yeah.
Because
there we
you were
go.
unmuted. I heard you sniffling in the intro. I was like, how did that happen?
Dude, it was weird because I didn't even see like you said, we're going live, and then like I just saw you and I didn't even see the intro going, and then all of a sudden like it just popped up the end of the intro. And I even went onto YouTube
strange.
to see what was going on. I was like, am I lagging or what's going on? But no, I think we're good now though. I think we're going strong here.
I have a feeling my internet's struggling a little bit today, and that kind
You
of
think so?
worries me. I do. I see the bars on the top left of StreamYard. That's unusual, but I also had to restart the router once today, so
Ooh,
a little nervous.
That'll get you.
You might be rolling solo at some point.
Whew.
Just kidding. We'll what we'll do is we'll make this one a short one. We have a lot of guys that we want to get into. We have our news. We have our what did we learn from week 7. So we have a ton of topics to cover. But specifically with the waiver additions, we've been harping on along a lot of these players for quite some time now. So we're not going to spend too much time on some of the guys, but we'll definitely get into them. And with that being said, let's kick off to some news of the day. Chris Olave arrested for reckless driving. Probably, I mean, it's silly, but probably non-news for fantasy football, correct?
Yeah, I wouldn't think. I don't really think anything is going to really come out of this. I don't know. I mean, we saw what Addison's was far worse, right? and he didn't miss time, so
it came out relatively unscathed. Honestly, I don't know if this. I have been 35 over a speed limit. I have.
Yeah, I think most probably have.
Okay, thank you. I felt kind of silly. Like at least on like a 60 mile, I'm probably hit close to like 90 at one point on that 60 mile. I'm not saying it's smart. I'm just saying it's not like aggressively terrible.
Yeah. What's up, Albert? Especially, I would say too. Like, I mean, this probably wasn't the case, but like, I'm sure people have been going like 80 and like a 65 or 85 and a 65, and it drops to 55 or something like that.
Yeah,
and then you're still going that, and you kind of didn't even realize. So I'm sure most people have. So
Zach Ertz placed on IR for quad issue, obviously triggering Trey McBride to be on our waiver wire ads, especially with the return of Kyler right around the corner.
Right.
Anything else you want to add to that?
Yeah, not much. Obviously, bumps Trey McBride, and we'll talk about him a little bit more later, I'm sure. But yeah, definitely bumps for Trey McBride.
We're going to pause here for a quick question. Would you trade Komet and Shaheed for Kittle and Rondale Moore? Komet?
20-man PPR.
20-man.
Roster is Russ, JT, Aaron Jones, Tyreek Hill, Christian Kirk, Komet, and Jacoby Myers.
I think
obviously Shaheed.
Shaheed's been nice. I mean, you talk about a guy that's third in targets. Well, you can argue that Kittle is like a stationary second target. Maybe stationary third, I guess, behind CMC. I don't know how you would look at it.
Yeah, that's By the way, I mean, if it's a 20 team league, that's strong for 20 teams.
I was. Why was I thinking he meant like it's 20-man rosters, but
It might be 20-man rosters. If it's a 20 team league, that's crazy strong. Like
that's super strong.
yeah, but either way, I think I would as well. I think I'd trade Komet and shit. I'm not big on Komet though. That's the big thing. Like
Me
I'm
either.
pretty
I think
low.
Kittle's the best one in the trade.
Yeah, for sure. And then looking at the roster, like you're not even starting Shaheed, and you're upgrading from Komet to Kittle. I would.
I probably would too. 20
And
people.
I like Shaheed.
That is a strong ass team for 20 people. That's a real strong team.
For sure.
Well, how's that draft go? You go Tyreek's got to be 1. JT second round probably.
Aaron Jones, be a dynasty. Maybe a dynasty that
could be a dynasty
that have been going on and built up to that or something at some point.
Second in most points. It makes sense. I probably would do that trade. I think Kittle makes your team pretty freaking strong.
Yeah.
Although Kittle, he has his big boom games and he's had, I think, 2 or 3 in a row. So expecting a dud soon. Dawson knocks out indefinitely after wrist surgery. I mean, this opens the door for Dalton Kincaid, but I don't think that's such a huge door that people are expecting.
Yeah. It's interesting because obviously he's still got Diggs, Gabe Davis, others there. So, yeah, it'll be interesting. It'll be interesting for sure.
Going back, this says only 2 originally being drafted were JT and Russ. So he's been making moves like crazy. Yeah.
Yeah.
Jerome Ford out 1 to 2 weeks with low grade high ankle sprain. I don't trust this.
As in, you don't trust the replacement options, or you don't trust him being back within 1 to 2 weeks?
I don't trust him being back within 1 to 2 weeks. And if he is, I don't expect production to be anything. It's kind of really painful.
That's the thing, is you never feel great. You never feel great about any high ankle sprain.
I mean, what was Barkley out? Because I think this is almost identical to what they said Barkley had, correct? Or was this what they said Austin Eckler? Barkley missed 3.
Yeah.
Eckler missed 3.
Oh, I don't know. Did either of them say it was low grade, or I don't remember, to be honest.
There is a case of a low grade high ankle sprain. And I can't think it's either Barkley or Eckler. Then you have Khalil Herbert and Kyron Williams. Are those both ankles? But I don't think it was low grades.
Right, where they're like they both get 4 weeks plus or whatever IR.
Yeah.
And, that's the thing, is I think ultimately we've seen time and time again talk about ankle sprains. Ankle sprains always linger. Anyone who's played sports too, like, knows. I mean, I've talked about how I play basketball, right? I've sprained my ankles so many times throughout my life, and like, you always feel like you're gonna be fine, and then it just lingers, and it can tweak so easy too. Yeah. Just like one little tweak and boom, it's just like right back, and you're just so frustrated. And plus, then not only that, even if it's not fully healed, you don't get the same cutting ability, explosiveness. Right. And it's not like Ford was like, he was fine. He had been fine in fantasy, but not like, it wasn't like he was like wowing us.
Who's Eckler or Barkley?
That had the.
No, he's just saying he's not Eckler or Barkley.
Oh yeah. Okay.
And those 100%. Guys are still kind of catching up to speed. I mean, I'm looking. If I had a guess, and I have no medical profession by any means, just an observer, I would think it's going to be closer to 3 weeks. And if he is back, let's say he's back by the Baltimore game, which is week 10. So he misses Seattle, he misses Arizona. He's back by Baltimore. I wouldn't trust it, but we could talk about it at that point too. Eagles trade for safety. Kevin, is it Bird from Titans?
Yeah, Bird.
Byard. He's been their defensive piece on the Titans for years, and they kind of stole him from Titans.
Yeah, I thought it was a pretty good deal for Eagles. Eagles have now made 2 deals with the Titans, getting AJB. I saw another thing they were talking about. They've traded.
What is Howie doing? He's just fleecing.
Yeah, He is. Dude, it's wild because I saw a thing, tweet today. It was talking about like what the Eagles have been and continue to do, and like they traded for Darius Slay, traded for Byard, traded for AJB, traded for Swift, and it's like so many impact players they've traded for,
I
which
mean,
more than any other team.
I think they signed him, or they may have traded for him, but CJ Gardner was a big part of their defense last year. I know he's on the
Yeah,
Lions now, but he was a huge piece of their defense. I think they signed him, though.
they may have, but either way, it was a good signing.
Kareem Jackson of Denver Broncos suspended 4 games.
Which I think this got reduced to 2. I just saw like
Yeah,
a
I saw
little
he
bit ago.
appealed it.
I believe,
Okay.
yeah, I believe it got reduced to 2. Um, I meant to change it, but I
Fantasy
think,
impacting at all?
yeah, I mean, they're already awful, right? So, I mean, I guess they get worse somehow, although I don't know
Yeah.
if they can get worse, but yeah, it's still a defense to attack.
All right. So next segment, we've been doing this for the past couple of weeks, is what did you learn this week? And Norton, I saw you had some, so we're going to kick off with that. Things we learned from week 7. Go ahead. I'll let you take it over.
Yeah, so I put this Packers offense is a mess and might be one of the worst in the NFL right now, and it might legit sink almost all players on their team all year for fantasy. Now I don't know if you agree with that or not, or if I honestly don't even know if I fully agree with it or not, but that's what it feels like right now with how bad they've looked, and especially coming off of a game against Denver where you're expecting some nice bounce back games, some big games from their bigger players, expecting, coming off a bye, playing Denver. Jordan Love should have been better. Christian Watson should have produced more. Aaron Jones, he didn't even get the full snap share,
Wasn't
right?
expecting too much from Aaron Jones.
Yeah.
I do have thoughts on it, but we're going to take a quick break for this comment. Najee was dropped in my league. Thoughts on dropping Watson, Deshaun, or Christian? Because I think Watson. Never mind. Sorry, to pick him up. Watson is my QB2, so it's Deshaun, and Najee would be my RB4.
I probably would, but I'm also the type of person that, I mean, and the thing is, if Watson's your QB2, your QB1's probably fairly good. And I'm assuming it's not a super flex league or a 2 QB league, considering you're considering dropping him. So I probably would, because I'm the type of person that just rolls with 1 QB in 1 QB leagues, almost no matter what. Like I almost exclusively do, because I'd rather have the bench spots on running backs.
Yeah, I think I would too, and I would love more context on the QBs that are available. In assuming again it's a 1 QB league, I think I would do this pretty fast. I mean, the Deshaun Watson stuff is messy right now, and Najee has been anything but an RB1 or 2. But you want that depth at the RB position quite a bit.
Yeah, RB
especially
is
for
when you need the most depth at.
And especially for somebody who gets it. But I do have thoughts on this. So is there a correlation with the Packers offense being messy and Christian Watson returning? Now he hurt his knee and they haven't given too much context on it, but I think they think it's a knee sprain. But it's been since he's returned that they've been pretty messy.
Yeah, it's possible. I mean, it's possible. I wonder if maybe him and Love just don't
got it yet.
mesh. Yeah, like, and I don't know. I mean, the weird part was why I was so high on Watson coming into the year was, and I think you were with me too, was like, I mean, I know you were more because you thought Love was going to take a step forward. I was more of just, I thought that it didn't matter because Aaron Rodgers wasn't really that good down the stretch anyway. So like, I was like, Aaron Rodgers
He's
was
a
like
yak. Christian Watson's a yak monster.
right. And I was just like, and so like, but it seems like Christian Watson, they've been using him strictly on deep stuff, which I don't know. I want him to get the ball in his hands and create after the catch. So I'd love to see more of that moving forward instead of just like, it seems like because he has like one of the highest ADOTs in the league.
Yeah.
So like, I don't know. I don't know if it's the fact that they're doing bad, and then Jordan Love is not hitting deep balls, so then he's just like throwing it and it's looking bad, or what? That's Robbie probably, right?
This is definitely Robbie, and I think this is a great addition and point to this. They have Minnesota, Rams, Pittsburgh as their next three. Likely will be even in the Minnesota, whose defense looked far superior than it has in all of this season. Last night they looked great. Have to think the game script that the Green Bay is going to be down and Aaron Jones is only going to start ramping up. And I think Robbie's on to something. I think he makes a lot of big plays happen. I mean, we saw it in, I can't remember what week it was. I think it was New Orleans or Atlanta, where Aaron Jones ripped off a couple huge runs and he had the 40-yard catch or something like that. Like these are big plays that helps a young developing QB. I'm not fully into this. It's definitely a mess right now. So I agree with you there. I'm not giving up too much hope. Jordan Love still QB 12 on the year. Not bad. Obviously the weight of the first three pull that, but even out of the last three, 17, it was the stinker on primetime, only 5, and then 15. Like these are, he's still in contention for being a top 12 QB as of now.
Yeah, no, I'm not giving up hope on the season because you know my love for Watson, but it feels pretty awful right now.
Got a comment here. I get Olave and Ramondre. He gets Keenan Allen. Do I accept PPR 4-man league? If it's a 4-man, I don't think I do it.
I don't either. That's the thing. It's like, dude, as it gets smaller and smaller, I don't give a damn about. Person. Yeah, I don't give a damn about depth whatsoever. Like,
because there's probably good running backs on waivers.
Yeah, like unless you're, although I guess if you're PPR, if you're playing in a 4-man league and you're starting like 2 or 3 QBs each, like 5 running backs, like if you have tons of starters, then maybe it's different. But like if you're starting a typical team and have a typical like 12-man type roster, but with 4 men, you're gonna have so many good players on the wire. I'm constantly trying to trade away the 2-for-1s, 3-for-1s, and I do Tucker, that in 10 or 8 team leagues all the time. Like,
if you want to add some context to the roster size, I think that would help. Not roster size, starter sizes. Starter size would be helpful. Looking to see. I know it might be a little bit to type out, but it would help answer. But I think it's a decline right now, unless your starters is a huge list. Like if we're talking, I don't know, what do you think? 13 to 15 players you're starting, then it's considerable.
Yeah, it's got to be probably minimum that. I just put out my top 12 like full PPR rest of the season, and Keenan's in my top 12 overall. Like, so I definitely prefer him.
So we had another thing we learned from Buffalo here. Go ahead and read that off.
James Cook still looks like the lead RB in Buffalo, despite the value had been bottoming out recently because he had been really, really tanking the last few weeks. Latavius was taking a huge chunk. But this week, it looked like James Cook was the guy again that got majority of the work. I still think he's going to, like, I think his value is going to be kind of a roller coaster, but I do think that, like, I don't believe in Latavius.
Yeah.
I think Cook will be the guy.
You think he's a good buy right now, essentially?
Probably. He was probably, I mean, the best time to buy was before this game, obviously, but like, I still think he's probably more of a buy than a sell at this point.
I think he is semi what I mean we're expecting. Right now he's 14 in PPR. That's better than I would anticipate. Now I get it, the last 3 weeks, 5, 7, 19.2 this week. Saved his day with a receiving touchdown. He's explosive. I mean, that's what, like, you want that in running back position, and especially on this Buffalo team, which I don't think they're ever going to give him even in this game where he was RB8 on the week, he got 16 touches. So he's 21 he's had, that was his highest, like that. I think that's going to be rare. Yeah.
I think he's going to live in that like 12 to 17 touch range. And which for me is perfectly fine assuming like 3 of those are receptions, 3 to 5.
Yeah.
Like, which he has been getting more receiving work than any running back really has ever gotten for Buffalo since Josh Allen's been starter. Which that's always been
Very
the reason
true.
I've hated their running back situation, is because I didn't think they would get pass work, and then Allen is one of the best like goal line QBs rushers. So I that's one of the two things. They take the high value touches away, but with him at least he's getting receiving work. So as long as he does continue to get receiving work, he's explosive enough to bust out some big play touchdowns. He'll probably be a top 15, top 18 guy.
On pace for 51 targets on the season. So I mean
Nice.
that's in the wheelhouse that you're like okay and acceptable with. You had another one here from Baltimore.
Yeah, Lamar Jackson might have the highest floor and ceiling of any QB, and he has a real shot at QB1 overall. So I don't know how you feel about this one, but I've been harping on it for a while. I mean, I've been higher than most people on Lamar Jackson forever, basically, because he runs. But I also think he's an underrated passer as well. I think he's everyone always, the big narrative for a long time was he's a running back. He's a running back. Blah blah blah
I
blah.
know.
And it's like, dude, the dude is a good passer. Like, and like, give it up. He's a good passer, and he just went out and destroyed a defense that we considered a good defense.
Pretty
As
great
a
defense
passer.
all season. And on his ground. And on the ground. I mean, he was 9 for 36 for a touchdown, 4 yards
Right.
per carry, which is good in running back terms. I guess a little bit low considering Lamar. He's usually, he finishes the year with like 6 yards per carry. But like in general, you look at his season, QB9, QB3, QB4, QB20, QB9, QB2. Not even going to mention the first game against Houston because it was just it wasn't a good game for Lamar, but I think they destroyed Houston, if I remember correctly.
I think so.
Just I think there is a chance he could. I think it's a little bit of a longer shot at QB1. I think. I mean, I don't know. This was obviously his best week this year. It depends on, are they going to come out like that? Like they face Arizona next week. Or is he going to be throwing like that? I find it harder to believe that he has the game that he had, but he's definitely in MVP contention again.
Yeah, he really is. And it's crazy. Like I was trying to look and see that. I know their like pass rate. It was like their like drop back rate or something was like crazy over expected. And their like context neutral pass rate is pretty high as well. Things like that. So it's definitely giving him more dropbacks in general.
Yeah.
Which obviously you like to see because he's gonna either leads to him throwing or running. And the games before this, he's been having like 12 carries. This game he had 9 carries for 36, but the one before I think he had like 12 for 61, like
13 for 62. Yeah.
13 for 62. Like he had all these stuff like that in that range. And that just, you think about that for a second. Like if he gets 50 to 60 yards rushing a game, right? That's 5 to 6 points just rushing.
Yeah, he has five rushing touchdowns already.
Yeah. So it's just like that's just so crazy. He could throw for 100 and 180 in a touchdown and rush for 50 in a touchdown, and that's like a monster game. Like it's just so good.
I did add one here, and I get it. The ref play against the Eagles wasn't great. There were some very odd calls in that game, but the truth is, and I spelled Dolphins wrong. Dolphins aren't competing for a Super Bowl until their defense plays better. I think it was a real eye opener for me. I thought this team was relatively unbeatable once they started really rolling. I thought Tyreek was unguardable. Waddle's been on and off with injuries. They looked vulnerable this game. Their defense is even, obviously even more vulnerable. It's been kind of getting lit up all year, and their offense has been kind of picking up the slack that their defense. Not much to add to context for fantasy. It was a eye opener. I can't believe I spelled Dolphins wrong. I'm like Robbie.
No, but I think you make sense. Obviously they're playing the Eagles, which I think we all consider one of the best teams in the league. So, yeah, it's tough. But I see what you're saying, and I think they have the potential. I think they're still. I do think they're still a contender, but I do agree. Like the defense has to step up, or they're not going to, because like you can't be letting up 31 a game. And then like on top of it, obviously like Tyreek had a fine game. It seemed like they shut the running game down. The Eagles pretty much.
Yeah.
Like Mostert had a pretty bad game comparatively. Jeff Wilson barely played. Ahmed didn't really do anything. So yeah, like they pretty much shut it down, made it one dimensional, and then Tua had a low game compared to what he's done most of the year. And like you said, Waddle's been in and out. So
He's been so inconsistent and so kind of injury prone on the season. So it's been tough. I hope he bounces back for a better second half.
for sure.
Let's get into some waiver wires here. Waiver wires. We got we're gonna kick off with QBs, and one of the things I was speaking to Norton about is we've been harping on a lot of these guys quite a bit. So I think we're gonna be pretty quick outside of the deeper ones, and maybe we'll make more of a point for those. So let's kick off here with number 1, Derek Carr, facing Indianapolis Colts defense this week. What do you like about Carr this week?
This week, so he's coming off of 2 straight 20-point games, playing against the Colts, who their defense has not been very good. Their secondary has been not very good. Playing in
Showed out a little bit more against the Browns.
Yeah. And then, but I think they've allowed the 9th most fantasy points to QBs so far this year. And I don't really love a lot of the QB options, like for streaming specifically for this week anyway. So he's probably one of the top ones for me. To be honest, if it's me in a 1 QB league and I'm trying to like stream for this week, because there's no buys, right? So I'm probably most likely not streaming anyway. But even if I am streaming, I'm waiting for waivers to run. I'm not using a waiver priority or any fab on any of these guys. And Carr would be probably my first preference as of now, but like to me, it's kind of close between a lot of them, and none of them are like that enticing. So that's kind of where we're at this week, I think.
Did we have any QB injuries this week that I'm missing?
I guess only Watson, kind of re-injured, but
I assume you already have a backup plan for Watson, and it may be Carr. Russell Wilson faces off Kansas City again. I will say this, Norton, that I was kind of surprised you had this one, because if I'm not mistaken, he had a horrendous game against them the first time around.
He did. He had like 8 fantasy points.
Yeah.
So like it doesn't feel great. Again, this is where we're at this week. At least like the thing about this one is at least he's been mostly pretty good for fantasy all year, aside from that KC game. So that's a tough spot considering the matchup. And they're likely to be trailing and having to throw a lot. Yeah. So they're home. Yeah. So it's a little bit better.
Could help. I mean, the defenses struggle a little bit more in Denver, in Mile High Stadium.
Yeah.
Sam Howell versus Philly. I actually think I would go Sam Howell before I would go Russell. I don't know if these were set up in an order. I'm assuming you had them in your order or your preference.
I do, but like, again, some of them are very close. I may change. I honestly may change throughout the week. It's like, that's how it usually goes for me. I kind of have a feel for it, and then like the next day it's a little bit different. And so unless there's one that I really feel good about, but like none of these, again, I'm feeling good about. And Sam Howell's been on these like every week. He's like your perennial,
talk about him so much,
weekly streamer. Yeah. He should basically Russ Wilson.
He should be rostered in all leagues. This team has to throw a ton. He's I mean, I don't have the math in front of me, but I'm looking, his lowest attempts was 23. Outside of that, he's thrown under 30 attempts one other time. So 31, 39, 41, 51, 42. Like that's a ton. You want that. He's QB 11 on the year. If he's out there, go grab him. He scored 19.6 at Philly last game. So you have to think, you're hoping for the same range there.
Yep.
Deeper. These are the ones I wouldn't mind going in a little bit of a deeper dive in. Desmond Ridder, Kenny Pickett, and Gardner Minshew. If you had to rank these, how do you rank them?
Oh man, I think I technically have them in that order, but I may switch Pickett ahead. I don't know. I may throw him out. I don't even know, honestly.
If I had to rank them, I go Gardner, Desmond, Pickett.
I was gonna say I might go Gardner. Gardner's
He's just
the
gonna
agent of
throw a ton.
chaos. Like, yeah,
He
he's like
is.
he
He's
throws a ton.
Jameis. He's mini Jameis. I mean,
Yeah,
he's old school QB. Just let me sling the rock.
he's what is it? What is this Is it Gen Z? Gen Z or what is it?
He's probably ours. He's probably a millennial.
Millennial. He's millennial.
I think.
Ryan Fitzpatrick,
Yeah. Yes.
just
Although
that
I think
gunslinger.
he also might be on the older side of a millennial.
He,
Uh,
yeah.
Yeah, he's
What is it? Is
27.
it
So
Gen?
I don't know. I don't know if he is. He might be Gen Z. You might be right. 27.
Is he Gen Z Blake Bortles?
I think Gen Z Ryan Fitzpatrick was a much better and much
Okay.
more fitting.
Yeah. But that's the thing, dude. He's that guy that's like the journeyman that sticks around. He plays well for the most part, but he's also kind of like an agent of chaos, like I mentioned, where he'll throw pick sixes, but then he's just right back at it, and he don't care. He's slinging it. He'll run a little bit. He's got that little
Dude,
swagger to him, and
he threw
fun.
23 times. 23 times last game. Only 23. 55 the week before and 44 in his other start. Only 23 times last week. Scored 30 points. He had 2 rushing touchdowns. But I mean, even if you take those away, which you can, I don't think you expect Gardner to get 2 rushing touchdowns each game. So take those away. I mean, he's still putting up 18 fantasy points in this game. Like he
Yeah.
was,
He had 2
and that's
big
with
passes
2
for that,
fumbles
right?
and an interception. I think he had 2 lost fumbles too.
Yeah.
Yeah, 2 big passing touchdowns, 305 yards, 1 INT. Like he was just slinging the rock. He has the receivers for it. Michael Pittman is playing better than I've seen him play ever.
Probably, yeah. Honestly,
Josh Downs is a stud.
yeah,
He
he's looking
really is.
great. And then,
So-
yeah, I don't blame you. I originally, like when I first did it, I had Minshew top, and then I kind of forgot about him, and I forgot to put him on here, so I put him on at the end of the list of this, and then I was just like, I don't know where I'd have him, but this is also why I would not put a waiver in for any of them, because like I'd rather
You could
just
pick up at
not.
one of whoever.
Yeah, I'm not gonna waste my waiver, and on that, I'll just let the waivers run or waste any fab. Let it run. Add any of these guys for free. You said you had
Last.
Pickett last.
Yeah, I did, but I did want to touch on Desmond Ritter, and
Okay.
we can move on unless you had something you wanted to say specifically about Pickett. But with Ritter, I think it's really interesting. I obviously game script is involved here, but it's starting to seem that Arthur Smith is starting to trust Ritter. Now, hasn't been bad, hasn't been amazing, but he's been good relatively the last 3 weeks. I mean, 19 of 25 last week against a tough Tampa Bay defense. He had 6 for 38 rushing. The week before against Washington, he was 28 of 47. So not great completion percentage, but you love those passing attempts, 307 yards, 2 TDs, 3 INTs. And then it was 28 of 37, not bad completion percentage, 329 yards and 1 TD. Like, he's starting to put some trust. He also had a rushing touchdown in that game. Like the last 3 weeks, I mean, Desmond Ritter is probably a top 5 QB. I don't have that up right now, but I can check.
He probably is, and he's had his 3 highest yardage totals in a row. Like 250, 307, 329 the last 3 weeks, basically.
QB
Going
6
backwards
on the last 3 weeks.
Yeah, and he did have a 3 interception week 2 weeks ago, but other than that, he hasn't thrown a pick in the other 2 games, and he's run, like you said, 2 touchdowns in the last 3 games. Yeah, I mean, obviously you could point to it and say it's been good matchups. Like Houston's allowed the 8th most fantasy points, Washington the 3rd most. Tampa Bay is known kind of more as a run stuffing defense, pass funnel. But again, Tennessee should be a good match. Tennessee hasn't allowed as much. It's I see they're ranked 23rd against QBs, so they haven't allowed but I don't think their secondary is good, and they just traded Kevin Byard. So I really don't think their secondary is good. I think it's still a secondary to attack. So I like Ritter as well this week. So I think it's a solid call for sure. Do you prefer him over any of the other 3 at the top?
It probably goes because I think I'm looking at upside here. For me, if I had to rank these, I go Kyler Murray because I want the highest up. Well,
for
both
sure.
those two also check for Kyler Murray and CJ Stroud. We're not going to touch too much on those, but Kyler Murray should be coming back. CJ Stroud might be dropped from his bye. I would probably want those two over all.
For sure. 100%.
And then for me, it probably goes Sam Howell, Gardner Minshew, Desmond Ritter. I want these two because I think they have more upside than Russ. And you know what? I'm just hating on Russ a little bit too much here. So Russ probably goes ahead of Desmond and Gardner as well. But Derek Carr, I honestly don't want any part of.
I can understand it. The only thing I'll say for Carr is that he does have 2 straight 20-plus point weeks. He's been over 300, I think, right?
Let's get into some of these RB waivers here. Deontay Foreman, first on. I wish we picked him in DFS.
I know. Missed opportunity.
But it's a good matchup for him going against the Chargers this week.
Yeah,
I
and
assume he's the RB1 this week.
Yeah, and he's. I mean, we've been, like I said, harping on Roshan, hoping that he's going to be back, and it seems likely he's going to be back this week, so it's going to be interesting how it goes. But Foreman was just really good this past week, 33 points. So it's hard to get away from him. He's rostered in more leagues than some of these other guys as well, but I think he's still rostered in less leagues. I think he's rostered in less than half of leagues, so he probably is my top priority if he's still out there. But the thing is he's probably not out there in most like competitive 12-team leagues right now.
Right. I don't think there's too much to add there. I think he is kind of a rental, along with this other guy, Darrell Henderson, who is possibly a 3-week rental, but looked good in his first game back.
Yeah. Like if you're trying to pick, the way I see it between Foreman and Henderson is that Foreman, I'm probably going to rank better this week. Henderson, but like after this week, Henderson might be better the next like 2 weeks.
Yep.
Foreman, because Foreman's dealing with obviously return of Roshan, and then Herbert might be back within the next week or whatever. He might be possibly.
You get Roshan should be. You would hope Roshan's back this week, but it's hard to say because that concussion. You got 2 more weeks of Khalil being out. At least
okay,
2
weeks. 2 weeks. Okay.
Yeah.
So, but yeah, Henderson.
Did you say you were talking about Khalil, right? With
yeah.
Okay.
But yeah, Henderson, he's probably my second priority among running backs after Foreman. But Henderson's definitely gonna be much more available. He had the most snaps, touches, and routes between him and Royce Freeman, which were the two that rotated for the Rams this week. After Zach Evans was basically like the main kind of waiver wire guy, and then by the end of the week, it was basically word that like it was going to be a rotation between the other two, and that's what it came to fruition. So we'll see moving forward. Now I know people have made this known to me because I put Henderson as featured in my like streamer article and basically a waiver wire article, whatever. And I mentioned him in my waiver wire like Twitter stuff today that Henderson was reverted back to the practice squad. Now, I think that's formality. I think it's literally just that they can do that multiple times without losing him.
How's that possible?
What I was reading was that with the practice squad rules, I may be misunderstanding, but I believe you can do it 3 or 4 times. That you
and you have like a little immunity for the week or something.
Yeah. Yep.
Okay.
And then if they're on it, if you put them back on the practice squad after the 3rd time or the 4th time, whatever it is, then they can be poached by anyone else. But the thing is like it's advantageous to put them back on the practice squad every time because then you have extra. Right. You have extra players like available. So that's my assumption is that it's formality.
I think it's an easy assumption. He did nothing in this game. Let's like if you look at his game, I mean, he did nothing in this game to warrant a real boat back down to the practice squad. And we have
Right.
seen this before. It's not this isn't uncharted territory. We've seen this with multiple teams before, and they put them right back up. Usually you see it with backup QBs a lot. I think Nathan Peterman on Chicago, this happened to a lot in the start of the season. Like you see it a ton. He pass protected better than Royce. Royce ran a little bit better, but ultimately they trust Darrell Henderson more. I think it's absolutely an easy assumption to say it's a formality and they're just gaming the system.
That's how I feel too.
Kareem Hunt on here, I think he's a target that I wouldn't mind having, truthfully.
I was going to be interested to hear your thoughts on him because I'm very, very torn about Kareem Hunt.
I think Kareem Hunt, let's say you get 2 weeks, right? And I think Pierre Strong is going to be involved. But it's pretty easy to assume that Kareem Hunt is going to be the lead. I don't know what that exactly looks like. I think he's going to play a pretty decent part in their offense. I mean, we watched him this week. He not quite the old Kareem, but he looked good this week. And I mean, I get it. It was an Indianapolis front, but now we're getting Seattle. I mean, we have a good matchup here. I think he's a great DFS pick. Even post Jerome Ford we talked about how hard it is to come back from that ankle sprain. So like if he has a little bit of a path ahead of him and we're getting Kareem Hunt more involved, there's a possibility this becomes Kareem Hunt's backfield. And I love Jerome Ford. I really do. I think he's looked pretty spectacular. But if that ankle lingers and he's not as efficient, I mean, you got to think that they're going to be turning to Hunt quite a bit for a competing team.
Yeah, and I also love Jerome Ford, and I had said back when they signed Kareem Hunt that I was more depth than anything, that I don't care. I'm still emptying the fab, basically. You know, when Chubb went down, it was still Ford top priority for me. Like we talked about it on this show, I believe. And I'm torn because when I was obviously Kareem Hunt outproduced Pierre Strong. I think he scored 15-ish PPR points, and Strong had like 3 or 4 or something.
Yeah.
When I was looking at more of it today, so snaps on the week. This counts also Jerome Ford's snaps too, but in week 7, Kareem Hunt had 26% of the snaps. Pierre Strong 28% of the snaps. Kareem Hunt had 31% of the rush attempts though, to Pierre Strong's 25%. Kareem Hunt ran 15% of the routes, and Strong ran 18% of the routes. So the usage was kind of more of a split than I realized.
Was this against the Colts too? Is that what you're saying?
This is this week, yeah. They basically split snaps
50-50.
50-50. They basically split rush attempts and split routes, essentially. Like I said, Hunt had like slightly more rush attempts, but Strong had more snaps and routes.
That is interesting. I think Pierre Strong is a really good back. I think he is a definite add. I think we have him on this list if we keep going, but yeah. I understand that's a big concern. I mean, even this, I think you're kind of hoping that Kareem Hunt is a touchdown maker here. Because I mean, last 2 weeks, RB12, RB14, but he also had 3 total touchdowns in those 2 weeks. So
yeah.
One was very close to not being a touchdown in the Indy games. I mean, I think those are fair concerns. I think he has a longer life than the 2 above, though. Post Ford coming back, say Ford does come back, he still was relevant in the San Fran game. He had 37% snaps. He got a touchdown, had 12 total carries. I think that could be I think you could say the same with Darrell Henderson. I don't know if we could say that with Deontay Foreman yet. I mean, this dude was buried as inactive for most of the season when Khalil Herbert and Roshan were there.
You know, it's so weird, really, when you think about all 3 of these guys. Henderson was unsigned in the beginning of the year. Kareem Hunt unsigned in the beginning of the year. Foreman inactive, and now they're like the top 3. And
they all are looking pretty good.
Yeah. Yeah, it's weird. I don't know. I really don't know what to expect. the usage for Foreman obviously was really encouraging, but he also had less behind him than the other guys. Henderson, I don't know. I mean, I really don't know because like part of me says like I'd want to put in waivers and fab stuff for the top two, and then like looking at the usage makes me nervous. Like like my thought on Kareem Hunt is almost like I'll pick him up after waivers run, but I would feel nervous about putting in a waiver for him. But then also Ford could be out longer than we think too. So then I don't know. I'm torn.
I see you have on this list Roshan. This is for stash reasons only. He's been on our list for quite some time and has probably been rotting on some of your guys' benches. So we apologize for that. But the talent is there. I don't know if we have anything additional. Do you have anything additional to add on Roshan?
Not really. Obviously, it's the same situation as Foreman, except he's been not healthy. And I think Foreman's been good enough that even if Roshan's back, he's not going to take the full workload. Like at this point,
not immediately. Yeah.
I would expect still Foreman to get the majority of it, to be honest.
At least the first week back, yeah. And then I think you're right. He's not going to get the full workload with Foreman, and then he won't get the full workload with Khalil when he's back, if that's how they split it. Roshan could be the inactive one coming forward. I would hate that. I would hate every bit of that. It also kind of depends on what this team is doing, right? Like, does Tyson keep winning? If Tyson keeps winning, then they could lean on Deontay a lot more. If Tyson doesn't, they're going to want to see what they have in Roshan. I believe that.
It's kind of a bummer too, because like right as he was about to get his opportunity, that
two juicy matchups too.
Yeah, exactly. Kept him out of two juicy matchups where he could have been the lead guy and established himself.
Yep.
But here we are now. He probably might be waiting for an opportunity all year again, and who knows?
Who knows? Gus Edwards at Arizona. This was the first time Gus looked like himself. This week. From sustaining multiple injuries over the past year and a half, 2 years. I think there's an argument to be made. He should be at the top of this list.
I can see it. Especially if you need someone for this week specifically. He's probably the safest one. The main problem with him is that he doesn't get pass work and he doesn't
5 targets on the week, or on the year.
And Lamar is a vulture at the goal line too, obviously. So
1 reception this week. Did you see that?
Yeah. 80 yards, right?
No tutty.
Unreal, dude. Unreal. Well, and the thing that's crazy too is that this was also the first week that he kind of established himself above Justice Hill. 14-4, I think he outcarried him, which normally had been more of a split. The split had been kind of cannibalizing both, where like there were just like those RB3 flex plays if you're desperate kind of thing. But if Gus is going to get 14 plus carries a week, that especially in good matchups, that's more viable as an RB2.
This wasn't even, and the crazy part is this was like, if there's anywhere you can't really, or haven't been able to attack this Detroit defense, it's been on the ground, and Gus tore him up. So, I mean, that's super encouraging. This one's the most, dude, this is so frustrating to me.
Unbelievably frustrating.
I was toting this guy. I was like, he is going to get the work. They turn to him. He goes out, 25% of snaps the last week. And then they're like, you know what? Keontae in it. Let's give this guy 80% snaps.
Yeah, dude. Weird usage. Weird usage with him. Like, we were expecting him to be kind of more the lead guy, and then even veteran practice squad Damian Williams out snapped him and touched him the previous week, and then all of a sudden this week it was like DeMarcado again. So this one's risky.
Keontae had 0 snaps.
Yeah, it was really weird. It's been really weird the last 2 weeks between these guys. I don't really know why the usage has been the way it is. Keontae, you think? I wouldn't be surprised. I mean, I don't really know what to expect between these guys. I'm going to rank DeMarcado the highest.
I think if James Conner comes back, Keontae might be a cut candidate.
Very possible.
Only 23, though, so I may be talking out of my ass here. Some stash options. Jeff Wilson is back. He didn't get much carry this week. Tyjae Spears, Elijah Mitchell, Tanks Bigsby, and Pierre Strong. I think if we're looking at some stash options, I think Pierre Strong's one of the ones that I would want, because I think there's talent there, and there's a possibility that he already is getting what you said 1-to-1 pretty much with Kareem Hunt. So I think he's the guy I would want maybe the most out of this list.
Yeah, especially if you need someone now. Like he has has a real opportunity to split work and get double. Out of all those people, out of all those in the stash / deeper, he has the most chance of getting double-digit touches this week.
Yeah.
Jeff Wilson is probably the highest upside, just because we've seen what running backs in this offense can be if
Right.
they, if they get the full workload. Spears obviously great stash and upside if Henry gets traded or hurt. And same with the other guys. They're like guys that could take over a big load when they're, if the starter goes down. But Strong is the guy for the week.
I agree, at least for the week, like you said. Let's get into some wide receiver waiver options we have. Kick it off with Joshua Palmer versus Chicago. He is clearly the number 2 here. It makes sense if you look at it. If you look at how Staley kind of runs this system, I think it was something that maybe we should have expected a little bit more, that Quentin Johnson wouldn't be the main wide receiver 2, but it just felt natural to fill him in there.
Right, for sure. And Palmer's been at 100%, 100%, 97% route participation the last 3 weeks. Clearly, like you said, the number 2, and in one of the best offenses with one of the better QBs in the NFL. It's kind of crazy that his roster percentage isn't higher at this point. And I think it's because people have been expecting QJ to overtake him, but I think that's just like, it's not going to happen right now, like at least for a little while, like maybe not at all this year. So
yeah,
Palmer's going to, especially after a big game, his percentage should skyrocket now that we've seen it like 3 weeks in a row of him being way ahead of QJ and him producing.
Rashee Rice, my favorite on the list. We have been toting this one for quite some time. We are starting to see it.
Yeah. 65% route participation this week, which was highest of the season.
Love it.
We want to see him get to 70, 75, 80. Like if he can do that, even if he can get to 70 plus consistently, I mean, he's been doing it. I think he has 3 straight double-digit PPR weeks, 4 of his last 5 of his 7 games.
3 straight games of touchdowns.
Yeah, probably, yeah. And so this.
Oh no, he didn't have a touchdown last week. It was 4 for 72, but 2 of the last 3 he's had a touchdown in. 13, 11, 17 last 3 weeks.
Yeah, this is last call for him. I mean, he's already rostered in most leagues probably anyway. But
if he's there, you're going to have to outbid him.
Yeah, because I think I was checking and he's like at like 58% or 60%, like in that range. Which so he's going to jump over 75% as well.
He caught a lot of eyes this week. 4:00 games tend to do that. I mean, obviously prime time even more, but like you get a 4:00 game, eyes were he was in my fantasy football Discord. It was like what people were talking about, and I feel that this progression has been coming. I did see a thing about how Andy Reid has notoriously never really given a wide receiver 1,000-yard year outside of Tyreek Hill and Terrell Owens. And I'm not saying that Rashee can be that. That would be very premature. But the fact is, Kelsey is aging. If you're in a keeper, if you're in a dynasty, I would go get Rashee. I think he is going to be a big part of this offense in the long term.
Yeah, hopefully, because he's produced very well.
And I think you can almost say the same quite a bit about Josh Downs. Now we've seen he's definitely more of a redraft target here. Has been just getting loaded with targets since Gardner has taken over the helm.
Yeah, and he's another one, 3 straight double digit. It's actually 3 straight with at least 13 points. 4 of the last 5 with at least 13 points. He's this past week going 5 for 125 and a touchdown. It was one of them was a big play, but I mean, give him credit for that,
defense.
Right? Yeah,
it's a tough defense.
Yep, and again, all the like underlying metrics are good. Route participation has been good. I think he's been above 77% all year, above 80% average on the season. Target per route run was like 20%ish. Target percentage was like 20%ish. Their defense, I've mentioned, isn't good. They play in a dome. Yeah, I mean, there's a lot to like. He's the clear number 2.
He's on pace. Like if you just take his targets for the year, he's on pace for 115 targets for his rookie year. I mean,
Yeah.
that's a significant amount. I think it will be actually quite a bit higher than 115. I think it's probably going to be closer to 125, 130 with Gardner at the QB position.
Yeah, I love all three of these top guys, to be honest.
I do too. And this is where it kind of, there's definitely a teardrop off here where you go to Kendrick Bourne, but I know why you're doing it. It's because he's going to face Miami. And Mac
Yeah.
Jones is looking better.
Yep, and not only that, but dude, Bourne has been good. He's got 16 PPR points, 2 straight games. I think he's gotten like 18 targets the last 2 games. I think it was 11 and 7 if I remember right. And he's been good whenever he's gotten opportunities. So I hope he continues to get opportunities.
Yeah. We plugged him in our DFS lineup. It was nice. We did have a question come in, full PPR 12 man. I have JT, Kyron, and Gibbs. Should I trade Drake London and JSN for David Montgomery to stack with Gibbs? My receivers are CD, AJ Brown, and Brandon Ayuk. Ooh. Kind of loaded at receiver. What the hell?
And
how do you
it feels
get?
like a lot to give up for an injured Monty, though.
I think I agree with that.
Like I'd rather try to trade Drake London and JSN for a better running back than an injured Monty. If you want to get,
give an example. Who would you target with that? Because you're not going to get a guy like Brees. You're not going to get. I mean, if we looked at, I'll run through it. Give me a second.
Yeah, I was trying to think of, because you're not going to obviously get CMC.
No CMC. You're not, I wouldn't trade for Mostert just because I'm scared. You're not going to get ETN. You might be able to get Zach Moss, but I probably wouldn't do that. You possibly could get DeAndre Swift.
I'd rather have Swift over Monty.
You can't get Kenneth Walker, I doubt. How did this switch? Sorry, I clicked on the wrong button. Would you do it for Alvin Kamara over Monty?
I prefer Kamara over Monty, especially full PPR. No doubt.
Would you try to buy Bijan over Monty?
Yep.
Already tried trading for Swift. He won't let him up. So Bijan would be a target. The Bijan owner probably wouldn't do that.
Yeah, I'm guessing he wouldn't.
Would you do it for Josh Jacobs over Monty?
Yep. I would. I know people are down on Jacobs. I'd do it over Mixon too.
Mixon and Jacobs. I think Jacobs would the owner might consider Brian Robinson over Monty.
No, prefer Monty over B.
You definitely prefer Tony Pollard over Monty. I already know what you're going to say there. Would you prefer James Cook over Monty?
I think I'd probably prefer Monty over James Cook. It's somewhat close.
So some of the targets you're suggesting: Alvin Kamara, Josh Jacobs, Joe Mixon, Kenneth Walker, if possible. But I think Kenneth Walker is a long shot. Let's see if I see anybody else on this list that might be relevant. The Eckler owner's not going to do it. The only other person I can think of is Aaron Jones or Javante. Would you put them over Monty?
Those ones are.
They should be cheaper. They should be cheaper than Drake London and JSN.
Yeah, I mean, I guess ultimately you're pretty loaded at receiver, so it's kind of interesting. I mean, I guess you can give up, but I don't know.
What's someone you would trade Gibbs for? Prefer a wide receiver?
I'm gonna run through some guys here, and you tell me now if you would rather have Gibbs or this receiver.
Okay.
Gibbs or Puka?
Puka.
Gibbs or DJ Moore?
DJ Moore.
Gibbs or, I'm assuming Keenan Allen, obviously.
Yeah.
Gibbs or Addison?
Addison. I'm a little bit lower on Gibbs, but
Gibbs or Nico? Gibbs or Jacoby Myers?
Probably Gibbs. I hate Las Vegas.
Gibbs or Mike Evans?
I think those wheels are going to fall off. Not Mike's, Baker's, but Big Mike. Give me Big Mike.
Gibbs or Pickens?
Well, I love Pickens. Don't love Pickett. If I'm deep enough at running back, it would be Pickens.
Gibbs or Ayuk?
Ayuk.
Gibbs or Olave?
I think Olave is a buy low right now, so Olave.
Yeah. Gibbs or Flowers?
Flowers.
Gibbs or McLaurin?
T-Mac been nice, dude. I gotta go T. I'm just lower on Gibbs. We know what his role is when D-Mont comes back.
Yeah. So Parker, I think we gave you a
Did you
bunch
agree
of them
with
there.
all of those?
Um,
You may not agree with T-Mac or Flowers, is my guess. Though
I
you'd
love
have
Flowers,
to do it for Puka,
though.
right?
I love Flowers. Yeah, I would do it for Puka. I love Flowers, so I probably would trade for Flowers if I needed a receiver. I think it's fair. So yeah, I think a lot of those names that we named are some good options. Kind of pick your favorites or see which teams like in your league needs running back more, and if you need a receiver more, check their receivers on that. And I mean, I think all those would be good guys to try to get because I think it's possible to get any of those. Honestly, like it's close in value, I would think.
It's hard to see Gibbs' role skyrocketing with JMO back and once D-Mont is officially back. Like it's hard to see what that role looks like. But jumping back to this wide receiver waiver wire finds, we actually talked about a couple of these guys. JSN is starting to heat up now. DK was out this week, but there is some chemistry being built between him and Gino. Tank Dell could have been dropped. I think I think he's a great pickup, so I'm glad you put him on there. Romeo Dobbs, I think that's a great mention as well with Christian Watson injury. Him and Jay Love have looked to have a lot of connection. Jameson Williams and Juwan Jennings also. Any that you really deeper want? Yeah, those are two deeper ones. Even JMO is a little bit deeper for me personally. Any you want to make a note on here?
Yeah, JMO is mostly a upside stash. He's like such a high. He got 6 targets this week and came down with none, which is wild.
Yeah, it is.
But 6 targets is encouraging, and we know the type of deep ball burner he is, and he can catch any. He could take any to the house at any point. So he's a big time upside kind of guy. Could be frustrating though. Juwan Jennings got 9 targets, so if Debo is out again, he can be a deeper league kind of guy.
Yeah, I plugged him in for a Monday night lineup. Let's run through some of these tight ends. We're going to do them relatively quick here. Jake Ferguson versus the Rams. Rams have been awful against tight end. If he is available, he is a huge pickup to me. I think this has been on. Jake Ferguson has actually been on this episode since week 1.
Yeah, it has, dude, because even like in that first week he had
7 targets.
Yeah, and like a ton of them were end zone targets. I think maybe all of them were, or I don't even know. I knew he had a crazy target percentage, a crazy target per route run, and his routes were down. And then like over the last few weeks, he's seen his routes increase. Because early in the year he was around 50%, and then the last 2 weeks before the bye it was 73%, 84%. Okay, that's what we wanted to see, right? Because he had been producing fairly well on limited snaps and routes, and now he's getting more routes, and then he just hasn't like all clicked yet. But to me, he's the top guy for me among tight ends, and he's rostered in under 50% of leagues because again, he had a couple rough weeks in a row, even though the underlying metrics were good, but his production was bad, and then he went on bye. So he got dropped in a ton of leagues. I know I scooped him up in some leagues, like some Yahoo leagues where like you can drop bench players. So like he was still like available to pick up on Monday night. So if I wasn't picking up a backup running back, I just picked up Ferguson.
Just dropped him.
Yeah.
I think he's one of the tight ends out there that's kind of getting a lot of targets. Obviously, last 2 games he only had 4, but in the first 4 games he had a total of 25 targets. I mean, you love that from the tight end position.
Like, dude, it wouldn't surprise me if he's a top 10 or 12 tight end the rest of the season at all.
I don't think so either. I mean, we saw Dalton Schultz do it in this offense, and I think Ferguson offers a little bit more upside than Schultz, even though Schultz has been pretty decent in Houston. Who else on this list? We have Dalton Kincaid versus Tampa Bay. I'm not ready to do this. I would pick him up. I would pick him up if he's out there, but
yeah, it's
definitely not starting him. Me personally,
I can understand not wanting to because he obviously finally just had one good game, right? And it was like 8 targets for 75 yards or something like that. And clearly career highs across the board. And Knox is having wrist surgery, so he's out indefinitely. Should open up a lot of opportunity. I agree that he's more of like a pickup. Like he has a lot of upside because of the offense he's in. But he is still a rookie. He's going to probably be inconsistent. We'll see how it goes. And he's going to be at number 2 target, probably number 3 at best most weeks. So, but it is one of the best offenses is Josh Allen. And he's a high like upside prospect too. So
Taysom Hill at Indianapolis. You see a little bit more upside from last week on him, huh?
dude, Taysom Hill is just the weirdest player in NFL history, I think, at this point. Like,
Probably
I
true.
don't. It's so crazy. Like he's just they put him in all these different roles. Like last week, I was like I'm not doing anything with Taysom Hill. But now this is 2 straight weeks of seeing like actual tight end usage because on the year he had in the first 5 weeks he had 6 targets total in the first 5 weeks. Then the last 2 weeks he's had 13 targets total, like 8 and 5. And double digit 12 plus PPR points. He's been a top 6 tight end the last 2 weeks in a row. And he's still getting rushing stuff too. So like if that's the role that sticks, if he's going to get 5 plus targets a week, plus like some high volume rush attempt or high value rush attempts, like dude, that's a high upside tight end option. So
yeah, and I mean Jawan Johnson
might
is
return,
expected back in week 8, but we don't know
So
what
that could
that role
change.
exactly looks like.
Yeah.
Start 1, Cooper Addison or Marquise Brown. I don't know who they're all playing. Amari goes
Yeah.
against Seattle. Terrible secondary, but probably no Deshaun. Addison goes, I think it's Addison, by the way, goes against Green Bay, especially if Jair is out. If Jair's in, it makes me a little bit more nervous. This is an early predict. I probably go somewhere along the lines of if Jair plays, it's Cooper, Addison, Hollywood in that order for me. If Jair doesn't play, it's Addison, Cooper, Hollywood for me.
That's probably the same for me right now. I always tell people when they ask me about start sits or this early in the week, I'm like, hit me back up later in the week. I'll have my rankings initially done on Thursday, and then I'll adjust them till Sunday. So
nice format. Thanks for the takeaways. Thank you. Do you think Joe Mixon is worth trading for? Weak at wide receiver. Pieces to trade would be Ray. Who's that?
I did a second take too. It's got to be Rashee Rice. Maybe it's
Rashee or Zay. Okay, so I think he's saying he's weak at running back.
Yeah, because
his only RBs are Gus
and
Miles Sanders.
I'd trade either of like if in that situation personally, I would trade Rashee Rice or Zay Flowers for Joe Mixon. I think they're all similar value. Like I
think I would keep Zay over Rashee. And that that's crazy for me to say. In redraft, assuming this isn't dynasty, I would keep Zay over Rashee.
I think
he has more role.
Yeah, I'd keep him. I like Rashee, but I think Zay, like I prefer Zay both in dynasty and redraft personally, just because higher draft capital, higher prospect, higher production already, higher role already. So everything, but the only thing
I prefer Rashee at this point.
Really? Is it because of the KC?
Is it strictly the KC thing? I get scared of KC in Buffalo, but I think I don't know when Kelsey's days come to an end, but I think I really am high on Rashee right now. I'm really high on Rashee.
It's fair. I like him too. I do really like Zay.
Is there a point to be made that Gus Edwards might be his RB2? Is it a bad idea to keep Zay and Gus Edwards? And could he get somebody better for Zay Flowers than Joe Mixon? Who would that be? Or do you think that's right in the wheelhouse?
I think it's right in the wheelhouse, honestly. You might be able to get something better. Depends. It sounds almost like he's asking about Mixon as if like Mixon has been offered to him or been made available. That's what I'm kind of taking it as. So maybe like there could be other running backs that we kind of mentioned earlier in the previous trade questions that might be available. But again, obviously each league is so different that like we may think that Jacobs and Mixon and those guys are like similar value, but then like you get to another league and someone's like they would want the world for Jacobs and be willing to just give away Mixon, and then another league it's the exact opposite. So
Right,
like
right.
it's tough to say, but yeah, I mean I would prefer to trade Rashid Rice to get Mixon. If you can pull that trade right now, I would do it personally.
Cool. We're going to kind of do these quick, just going to name drop them. Dalton Schultz might have been dropped on a buy. He's worth a pickup. David Njoku, who's been targeted a ton with PJ Walker. Logan Thomas, Luke Musgrave, Trey McBride with the Zach Ertz news. I think the upside is obviously, well, Dalton Schultz above those others, but then I put probably Trey McBride above the rest of the group here, I think.
Even Ferguson?
Oh, I'm sorry, of the
okay.
others.
Oh, just the others. Okay.
Yep.
I just want to make sure because I know when we did the QBs,
I think Ferguson's number one on this whole
same.
entire list for me.
Same, 100%. Yeah, but I do like. I think McBride's upside is above those others. He just has like the most worry and downside, I guess, too, though.
Yeah, high capital. I was surprised to see that they weren't really using him early in the season. Like they spent a second round on him.
It's such a weird thing with him because like he was touted so big coming out of college. I felt like he was like hyped.
Wasn't he tight end 1 or tight end 2?
Yeah, at some point. Like
no, I mean like I think
actual
he was
draft
the first.
capital?
Yeah, I think he was the first tight end off.
He might
have
been. I don't remember to be honest with you. I just remember him being like hyped so much in college too. And then like he kind of dropped a little, and then like it was kind of like, oh well, decent landing spot, and then all of a sudden it was just like they did not play him and haven't for years.
First tight end off the board. Ooh, relatively weaker draft class. I mean, you had Trey McBride went second round, 23rd pick, overall 55. You had Dulcich go in the third round there. Cade Otton went in the fourth. Jake Ferguson in the later fourth. Chig in the fourth. Isaiah Likely in the fourth. Yeah, I mean, the weaker tight end class in general compared to this year.
For sure.
But Norton, any last thoughts before we wrap up here?
No, I actually like the waiver wire this week better than the last couple of weeks, I think. Like especially at the wide receiver spot. Like if you have any or all of Palmer, I guess I'm interested to hear are Palmer, Rice. I know you said Rice is your top. Rice, so would it be Rice, Palmer, Downs for you? And are those guys,
Rice, Downs, Palmer, probably.
Okay, Rice, Downs, Palmer. Are those
Palmer's a very much just a guy.
That's fair. It's fair. Are those guys over any of the running backs for you, or do you have like Henderson, Foreman?
Depends on obviously team needs, but if I was to, if I was, I don't know, if I just wanted to pick up some guys and had some guys I could drop, yes, Rashi and Downs above Deontay, Gus. I love to have Roshan on my bench, so I'd probably keep him on my bench. Kind of. It depends on how desperate I am at running back, which most leagues I'm more desperate at running back than wide receiver.
Well, that's the thing. Yeah, it's tough because obviously if you need the running back right now, you got to prioritize it. But yeah, I think in the vacuum though, the receivers and the other last thing is don't be an idiot like me and drop downs. So
I think there's one other person that I just thought of, and it's again a rookie. Have to keep an eye on Mims to see if he gets dropped this week because I have a feeling he will. And this is probably for the deeper leagues, 12 team plus, maybe a little bit of a bigger bench. There's a good chance one of those wide receivers gets traded. Good chance. Maybe both. I think Mims should absolutely be on your radar if he gets dropped. If he's out there, keep an eye on Marvin Mims.
Yeah. No, it makes sense. I always do that kind of random thoughts and I basically go through each game, kind of looking at box score, looking at different utilizations and kind of seeing like and putting out different possible like fantasy thoughts that people can take away actionable too. And my thing, one of my points on the Broncos was just free Marvin Mims because it's like, dude, this guy, give him, he's been more efficient but he plays like nothing. Like it's just it's so weird to me because you'd think Sean Payton, as a guy who's been like an offensive guru type over the years, would scheme up plays, and everyone talked about how he was like going to be a great kind of fit with Russ as like Russ's new Lockett type player. Like, I don't know. It's frustrating.
Very frustrating. I mean, I have a feeling he'll be on a lot of waiver wires this week. They play
Yeah,
Kansas
for sure.
City, then they go on a bye. You love the rookie wide receiver after a bye. Now, in this situation specifically, I think we're going to need Judy or Sutton to be traded for the Mim takeover to happen. I
Yeah,
don't think
100%.
those guys, they're getting, well, Judy's not paid, but yeah, one of those guys are going to need to go before they.
And Mims is, I agree. And Mims is only 19% rostered on Yahoo, and that's going to drop, I think.
I think so too. I think he's going to get dropped in a ton of leagues this week.
Yeah, like he's going to be under 15%, I think, after this week. So if you have the room, he's another like upside stash, like you said.
We will be back tomorrow for some buy and sells. Thursday we got our must start, must sits, hot or not. I don't know what we're calling it. And then Sunday we'll be here as well for some live start sits. So make sure you guys are tuning in all week, 9:00 tomorrow, 7:00 Thursday, and at noon, all Eastern time on Sunday. So make sure you're tuning in. Follow Norton at Norton0723. Check us out at DadBodFS on Twitter and let us know any questions you guys got. For myself, for Norton, we love you guys. Peace. Thank you for watching our episode. If you enjoyed this episode, please make sure you like and subscribe to our YouTube channel.
If you aren't already following us on Twitter, check us out at DadBodFS.
We'll be posting all of our best clips and videos to all of our social media: TikTok, Instagram, Twitch, Facebook, YouTube. You can find us on there at DadBod Fantasy Squad.
Lastly, if you'd rather just listen, we make sure we post our audio of each episode on all the major streaming platforms. Stick with us all season long so together we can count our trophies